No? Anyway, you would think I'd be okay because I'm from Ohio.
Yeah, I'm from New York, but still.
Yeah.
We don't hold that against you.
Right, exactly. So, you would think we would be okay, but anyway, it is what it is. And we'll just deal with it the way we know how, by staying indoors. Amen, amen, amen. So I have a question for you. Who do you think you are anyway? That is the title of my message. Who do you think you are anyway? Have you ever asked yourself, who am I? Yeah. Have you ever asked yourself that? Usually we ask other people, who are you? Like, I know you, who are you? And what did you do to the person that I did know? Have you ever had your husband do something like out of the ordinary? You're like, who are you? Where'd you put my husband, Or where'd you put my friend or my whoever? So, is the person you are portraying the real you? Or are you an imposter? That's what we're going to talk about this morning. Because as you know, there are a lot of fake people in the world. Right? Now, I'm not talking about the hypocrites of the world, the ones that, show you one side of them in front of you, and then as soon as you turn your back, they're a different way. I'm not talking about those types of people. I mean, there are many people who are living in a life in a manner that does not reflect who they really are, especially as Christians. And one of the reasons probably, basically, is because we don't know the Word and we don't know the God that we say that we serve. But people have said things to these people, maybe even you're in this boat, that have caused them to think differently from what they really believe. Have you ever had somebody tell you something contrary to what you thought you were firm in believing about yourself or about a situation, and they came in and brought their influence? Come on, or their witchcraft, or whatever you want to call it, and then all of a sudden you were not so firm in that belief anymore. Well, it happens to us personally, and with us emotionally, and who we believe that we are, simply because somebody came along and planted a seed that was contrary to what we thought we believed. Events have happened to us that caused us to change direction in our lives sometimes, far from where we truly desire to be. And to me, that's really kind of tragic. That's really a real definition of tragic, is when you become something that you really never believed you were in the first place based on what somebody has said about you, or you heard, or somebody influenced you to think a different way. Now, we like different styles of preaching because of who we are or because of who we think we are, right? You like certain preachers on TV or certain people in the community that you like to listen to or read their books or listen to their messages. Our temperaments and thought processes desire a certain tone, a certain verbiage, the way they carry themselves, all those different things, maybe a certain presentation. Some like the hooping and the hollering, some like the more of a studious, calmer teacher type. We all have things that we like. But then so do our deep-seated issues. We all have some deep-seated issues that maybe haven't even been revealed to us yet. We have hang-ups, we have shame, we have guilt, we have anger, we have, pride, we have depression. We have all kinds of things that are way down on the inside of us that haven't been revealed yet. And there's a couple reasons why. Sometimes we're afraid to confront it. When it is starting to peek out, you're like, oh no, we're not going to look at that yet. I'm not ready to confront you. Or we're in denial. No, that's not me. That's not me. I don't do that. Well, everybody else is telling you, yeah, you do. I'm here to reveal your blind spots. But we don't want to do that. So we don't deal with a lot of things within us because of fear and shame or guilt or those kinds of things. But many think they are the way they are because that's how God created them. Well, that's just how I am. Have you ever said that? Well, that's just the way I see things. That's just the way I present things. Or that's just the way I'm going to resolve things. Well, that might be partially true sometimes, but we need to remember that God created us in His image and in His likeness while we were in our mother's womb. Now, think of this. When you're in your mother's womb, you are in a place where we are protected from outside influence or alternate thought processes. Okay, so here you are, you're comfortable, you don't hear all the negative things that anybody might be saying about you, you're not taught different thought processes because you're in the womb, you're not there yet, right? So while we were alive unto God in the beginning, when we first get born again, or when we first get born, sin is revived and then we die, spiritually, right? Paul said that. Paul said, I was alive unto God once, but sin came, it revived, it showed up in my body, it showed up it was revealed to me, and that's when I came to a spiritual death. Because now I know I need a Savior, because of my sin nature, okay? So, words at that particular time, as soon as you realize certain things, words begin to reform us, tragedies begin to reshape us, and sin begins to remold us. So we have all these little processes beginning to take shape in our lives because all of a sudden we're aware of things. We're in the womb, we were good, we were protected, and little by little the image and the likeness of God became altered in the soul. Remember, your soul is your mind, your intellect, right? Your will, your emotions, all those things. So through the process of time, we no longer saw the real us, created in God's image, created in His likeness, the head, not the tail, we're the victors, we're, all these things in Christ. We no longer see that. The godly image has been marred, the likeness has been changed, and all of a sudden, the happy-go-lucky little girl has become a bitter woman, right? The all-star captain, most likely to succeed young man, has become wasted on the sidelines of life, because they no longer believe what they thought they believed in the beginning because of what other people have said and done and circumstances and situations in our life. Since you could never measure up to what Dad expected or whoever, perfectionism set in, right?
Right.
And I think we have a lot of perfectionists out there that really aren't perfectionists.
Right.
Can I just say that loud and clear? Because what we have done is every T had to be crossed, every I had to be dotted, everything must be in its proper place and in a timely manner, and you've gone through all this place. All of the musts, right, in our lives begin to overtake the real you, where before you can scatter everything on your desk and still know where everything was. Do you have any people like that? Oh, it looks like a mess to me, but you go in and you can find it all because you know where you put it, right? Right? So, those kinds of things begin to overtake us. Your joy has been replaced with stress, right? Stress, when it is settled, brings demands not likely to be fulfilled. Unfulfilled demands bring on resentment, then bitterness, then a hardened heart. Is that the real you? No, that's not how God designed us. He designed us in His image and in His likeness, filled with the gifts of the Spirit, filled with the fruit of the Spirit, power-packed, life is happening. We're on the road to goodness and health and all of those things. But all these other circumstances that have come along because Dad expected you to be something, or Mom said that you wouldn't be something, and all of a sudden we begin to let all these things to reshape us. And we're dysfunctional in life. Dreaming of your knight in shining armor. How many's dreaming of their knight in shining armor? All of a sudden he's made you anxious. It makes you anxious to grow up too fast sometimes, because the seed is planted. You need a man in your life, or you need a boyfriend. Way back in elementary school, all of a sudden you're like, catch your eye on the cute little boy sitting in the back seat, or the back of the room, or a girl, or whatever. And we get anxious to grow up quickly and start this new chapter in our life that we're really not equipped. We're not mature enough to handle. And so we do it all wrong. We just do it all wrong. And how exciting to visualize the whole thing, though. You got the meeting of the boy or the girl, and then you got the proposal, and then you get the ring, and then you get to set the dates, and then you get to go and have life. And what happens is you couldn't wait to start doing all these things. And then instead, crash. Everything comes to a shattering end sometimes. Because what happens a lot of times in these particular instances, date rape happens.
Right.
You know, things begin to fall apart where God designed these things to be such a beautiful experience for each one of us. And all of a sudden, it crumbles right before us because we weren't ready for it. We just weren't ready. So, you know, there's never a time where we should embrace those immature moments that we're not ready for. I mean, we have to know that we're ready for these things, that our brain has developed and all that. And even when we get older, we're still maturing. Whether we're 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, we're still maturing spiritually. We're still learning things emotionally and physically and all of that. We're never going to ever stop growing. We're never going to ever stop learning. So we have to keep doing that. And so, you know, all these things happen. Why did he do that? You know, if you had a date rape or something like that, why me? You know, my friends warned me and I didn't listen. We go through all these things, then walls are formed, right? All of a sudden, you want to protect yourself because no one protected you in all of this, or at least you didn't see it. And then the definition of love has been rewritten. Perspective on men or women has been altered. Now all of a sudden, all men are pigs. Right? All women are whatever men call women. And we probably shouldn't say that on TV. But anyway, all that stuff gets altered, right?
Right.
And we want to change that. So these are just a few examples of how unfortunate circumstances in our life can change who we are really meant to be. You know, we're never meant to be broke, busted, and disgusted. God never designed that for us. Life is full of discoveries. Full of discoveries. Knowing who we really are should be one of them. We need to know who we are so that we know where we're going and that we know what's available to us and what we're allowed to have in our life. If we don't know who we are, none of those things are going to get answered. We're going to go through life, wandering through life, as some people would say, aimlessly. Not know where you're headed, where you've been, what's in front of you, what's in store for you. And we don't want that, right? So life is full of discoveries. I've come to the realization that in order for me to discover myself, I must be honest with myself. And I think that's one thing that I can get across to you today, is you have to be honest with yourself. You don't have to be honest with anybody. Well, you do. You don't have to be honest with anybody else when it comes to this. But you have to be honest with yourself. I need to be able to look in the mirror, and you need to do this as well, and say, you do not handle correction well. Or whatever it is that you have a problem with, okay? You got to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, you are not a good listener, right? You are very gifted in the areas of not all the negative, but even the good things about ourselves. You are very gifted in this area, whatever that area is. You've got to be able to look yourself in the mirror, not just in a room with four walls, because that's still kind of easy to do. But when you're looking at yourself in the face in a mirror, it really hits home a little harder. It's also harder to do. It's kind of easy. It's like text messaging. You can text message a whole lot of emotions that you think you feel, but you would never say to that person to their face. Good and bad. It's just easy. You don't have to see them. You don't have to face rejection. That's a big one. You know, if they don't answer the text right away, or if they respond a different way, whatever. So we hide behind a lot of little devices. And God is saying, no, get the mirror out. And let's be honest with ourselves, and let's be who we are supposed to be. I heard the following words, and they've always resonated with me. The first time I heard it was through Paula White, and she even wrote a book. And you've heard me say this: you cannot conquer what you do not confront, and you cannot confront what you do not identify. So if we want to conquer the issues in our life, the identity crises that we might have, or the deficiencies that we think we have in our life, we have to be able to identify them first. You cannot confront something that you don't know is there. So you have to be able to identify. Either you do it on your own, or you have people in your life that point it out to you, that are safe, come on, that are honest and love you in spite of whatever's going on in your life and who you are at that moment. So you need to have those people that can help you out. So in order to come up with a solution, that problem has to be identified, right? You don't come up with a solution first, right? You got to find out what the problem is so you can have the right solution. And it has to be scripturally based. You know, we have to deal with our issues according to the Word of God. The Word has all the answers. Every single answer to every question and dilemma and situation and crisis that we ever face in life. We have to go to the Word, right? So in order for us to be more like Christ, we must identify what needs to change. In order to identify what needs to change, we must be open to a heart search. We all say soul search, and that's true as well, but also a heart search. And for that, for a lot of people, that's going to be quite a challenge, because people don't want to face the ugly. You know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We got to be able to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of ourselves. And we don't always want to touch the bad and the ugly because of situations, because Mama just said I would never be anything, or Dad said I didn't never measure up, or whatever. Maybe you had a Sunday school teacher that did it, or a school teacher that told you things that were just very derogatory and really hit you straight in the heart, and it caused you to change the way you thought of yourself. We want to break that off of you today. Amen. We want to break that off of you, let you see that there is goodness in you, there are gifts in you, there are talents in you, there's a lot of neat things going on in your life. And even the bad stuff, it's all going to go eventually if you just let God do it. Amen. We don't fear that. We don't fight against it. We don't dwell on all the bad stuff in our lives. But there's going to be a time in our life where we do have to identify it, and we do have to confront it. And that's what we want. All right? So, many don't want to know what's in there. Is there anybody in here that just does not want to know what's in there? I know I don't always want to know what's in there, especially when I'm having a funky day, or I'm having a season of funk, whatever you want to call it. I'm thinking, okay, it's coming. Something in there is about to come out that shouldn't be there. I'm sure of it. I'm feeling it. You know what that is. Come on, you're getting agitated easily, or you're getting depressed, or you're backing away from things that you didn't back away from before. You know all the signs. Let that be a sign to you that God is targeting that area and saying it's time to give that to me so I can polish you up and make you look prettier, make you look more handsome, make you look more like me. And so we've got to see the signs that God is knocking on the door of our hearts in those certain specific situations. And it can be scary, but like Joyce Meyer always says, do it afraid. Do it afraid. Do it, do it regardless, because the end result will be positive if you do it in the right manner and just say, you know what? It's not working for me anyway. It's just not. I might as well try something new. Come on, we all know what insanity is if you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. If you're wanting to change in your life, you got to be willing to let God deal with those areas that He's tapping on your heart about. So, it can be sometimes what we fear the most. Something that you've hidden from everybody in the world. Even your mama doesn't know it, your daddy doesn't know it, your spouse doesn't know it, your best friend doesn't know it, and you're afraid that that thing is going to come up. It's dark, it's ugly to you, and we're not sure how people are going to respond if they happen to see that part of me, or if God requires of me to bring a testimony about that situation. There's a lot going on the inside of us. And that's why so many never reach their full potential. I don't think any of us in here has reached their full potential yet. Not necessarily because you got anything wrong with you, but because there's so much that God has that we haven't gotten there yet. I mean, no one's arrived. We're all still striving to be like Christ and to fulfill the call of God on our lives, right? But we're not willing to step out into unfamiliar territory sometimes. But how many know Abraham knew a little bit about that? He didn't know where he was going. He didn't ever scoped out the land. God says, just go over there. All right. Are you sure, Lord? You know how many times has God said, I just want you to do this? And you're like, I've never even thought about doing anything like that. I never even thought about going into the jail. I just got approved to go into the jails. And I've never crossed my mind that I would ever have any kind of jail ministry. I ain't been in trouble in my life. Well, let me retract. I've never been caught being in trouble in my life. I just wasn't a troubled kid. I mean, I had my issues, I had my attitudes and stuff like that, but I wasn't a bad person. I didn't get in trouble with the law or anything like that, so why am I going in there?
Right.
I don't know. God's got something in me that the women in there need, and it's up to me to discover that. And so as I'm discovering, even still after 30 years of being born again, I'm still discovering new things, and we're all getting new normals. Whether you want to embrace that or not, we are all going to have some new normals in the very near future. So make sure you're looking for them, because they're going to be stuff that you would never even thought of, never even dreamed of, never even thought that would, just like, oh, well, that'll be for somebody else that's been there, done that. Well, I've never been there, done that. I've never been in jail. Like I said, I've never been a drug addict. I never did any of that stuff. So I don't know, I don't understand God, but I can trust God. And if he can use me there, he can use you wherever he's called you, you to be, no matter how crazy it seems. All right? So let's not fear that unfamiliar territory too much. We can go, be a little concerned, but say, hey, God, are you sure? I'm pretty sure that God is sure. Can I just say that? I'm pretty sure God's sure that he knows what he's doing. So Abraham had to do it. Hebrews 11:8 says, by faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for inheritance, obeyed. And he went out, not knowing where he went. He didn't know, but he trusted God. And he trusted the word that he heard from God. And I believe there's quite a few of us in here today that have many words spoken to us in times past, maybe even as early as this morning, that you felt like God has spoken to you and they haven't come to pass yet or whatever. But he's saying, you know what? Just trust me.
Right. Amen.
Just trust me. If you'll take that first step forward, you know he's going to be with you all the rest of the 99s. The 99 steps that it takes you to get to wherever it is. So let's not fear God. It's okay to be a little apprehensive and like, well, this is a little different, God. I'm not sure about this. But God knows. And he knows what he's equipped you with, and he knows what he placed in you in the mother's womb. Right? So he's good with that. It takes faith to go somewhere you've never been before. It takes faith to exchange the familiar for the unfamiliar. Come on, we all get comfortable.
Right.
We all like our comfort zones. It's familiar to us. We know what we're doing. We've been doing it long enough, so there's not as many chances and opportunities for mistakes, to make ourselves look like a fool. Come on, to fail, right? But it's going to take faith to face what God has placed before us. But that's what the just live by faith. We have to live by faith. It's going to take faith to face the person that you become, but it's going to take faith to face the person that you have become and discover what's real and what's fake. And it's just not going to be really pretty at times.
Right.
So when you're feeling that, don't wear your makeup, ladies. Because it's all going to be down the bottom of your chin by the time you get done crying about it, right? But embrace it, just knowing that something better is going to come out on the other end. Amen? So can we handle the truth? Tom Cruise can't. Can you handle what may be unveiled? Some of you get that later if you've seen the movie. Can you handle what the eyes of your understanding may see? I don't know about you. I can only talk about me. when someone comes and says, and gives me a corrective word, whether it be Dr. John, Dr. Rebecca, or somebody else in my circle, you know, the very first thing is,
Right.
what? Oh, you know, one is like, oh, so we don't always like correction, and you know, but it's okay. We got to be able to see these things so they can be fixed. And when you get done stewing, when you get done boo-hooing buckets, who do they think they are? God, you know, I just don't believe that. Well, they're saying it for a reason. They're seeing something that you're not seeing, and we have to understand that we all have blind spots. So, enough about that. But anyways, we just gotta walk by faith. Many of us are simply actors playing out a role in a movie, and it's true. We have to become, quote unquote, we have to become the person we are to portray according to the storyline. When you have people telling you everything contrary to what you believed before, you now become that person. Now all of a sudden, all your T's are crossed because people are looking. All your I's are dotted because people are watching, and they're waiting to see how you're going to handle your life. Because everybody wants to be right. Everybody's going to go back and say, see, I told you. Told you were that way. Told you weren't going to make it. Told you weren't going to amount to anything. And they're just waiting. And that's wrong. I hope none of us in here do that. I'm sure that we're not. So we take on attitudes. We take on voice accents. I mean, we get the whole ball of wax going. We're just going through life, acting all great, and everything's good and groovy in our lives, right? And we come up with mannerisms that are not our own naturally, you know? But we have to make the movie character seem real. It can't look fake. Because you got to look like you got it all together most of the time, right? Because otherwise people will see that flaw. And we do it to ourselves. We see the flaw and focus more on the flaw. We're one little flaw instead of all the 2,200 good things that we got about ourselves or about somebody else. And that's the one thing that we focus on. Did you know that's what Adam and Eve did?
Yeah.
Jesus, Father said, you can have all of this. Sorry. Look at all of this. See that one little thing over there? Don't touch that, but look at all of this. But don't touch that, but look at all of this. Don't touch that, but look at all of this. And they go, and that's all they saw. That's all they saw. They saw what they couldn't have instead of what they already had. And we do the same thing in life. And God has given us everything to enjoy, everything to bring us joy in our heart. But we look at everything that we didn't get. Well, I wanted that man, or I wanted that woman, or I wanted that job, or I wanted that position. And God's saying, but look over here. Right. Look at the opportunities here. Look at what I've already given you. And we focus on all the wrong things. It's like a natural part of who we used to be as the sinful man. Right. But we're not that person anymore. We're not sinners saved by grace. We were sinners saved by grace, and now we're saints. Doesn't mean that we do everything correct and everything right, because we're growing. Sanctification is a process. You're not going to be all of that and a bag of chips overnight or even over a certain span of time. You're always going to be growing, right? So, do you, let me ask you this. Have you ever compared yourself to someone else? Why do we do that? Because we like what we see. Or we have insecurities. It could be a combination of things. I remember ministering in an RFI conference on this particular subject. And interesting enough, I realized the main reason why we compare ourselves to someone else is simply because we don't know ourselves. So we see what everybody else is doing that we like. I want to be like that. I want to be like this person. I want to be able to say that. I want to be able to, speak fluently. I want to be able to sing nicely. Well, if that gift ain't in you, don't try it. Unless you're in the shower. Everybody sounds good in the shower. No